to all of you. Thank you for joining us today. I'd like to just share a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes, because we actually have a couple of really great teams who are working just to keep this going and to help Erin and I not drop the ball. I just wanted to give a little shout out to them, because on the consortium side, we have Julie Fisher and Sam Dietrich, and also on the US DoD side, Philip, Newton, Vanessa Eddy, Olivia, and I hope I don't butcher your last name, Iannone, I believe, and of course our colleagues Jacob Eccles and Gabby Essex with NTI, who act as our secretariat. And just wanted you all to know that we do give a lot of thought to these meetings, and we do have leadership meetings also to discuss the direction we think that you all would like us to take as we move forward. And once again, just to reiterate that we really want to make this meaningful in the sense that it's not just going to be, people coming to talk at the group, but rather making it really actionable. On behalf of Erin and I yesterday, I sent an email out with the working group template and also links to the folders that Gabby kindly set up. This, we hope, will help lead those who have kindly stepped up to, on the different working groups to actually lead the groups. And in the folders, you will have access to the list of the people who have volunteered to join. So our agenda today is, we're really honored because we do have a presentation, and as we try to touch on the different working groups, this week's presentation is going to be on cybersecurity, and Dr. Rebecca Dunphy, who is the Division Science Chief on the Defense Threat Reduction Agency for the United States Department of Defense, will be presenting to us. And then we have the APP3 working group discussions, where we will be able to go into breakout sessions. But please allow me to introduce our speaker today. Dr. Rebecca Dunphy is a Science Division Chief, as I mentioned, of the Biological Threat Reduction Program, leading a matrix team of biologists and international program managers to establish scientific and technical priorities for the program and to provide enabling capabilities for BTRP to enhance biosecurity, biosurveillance, and biosafety in the country and through regional engagements. She trained as a research scientist specializing in infectious diseases, receiving a Bachelor's of Science degree in biochemistry from Northeastern University and a PhD in virology from Harvard. Dr. Dunphy began as Science Division Chief in January of 2022, but has worked with BTRP since 2012. She provides strategic and technical expertise to the program as a Booz Allen Hamilton consultant. In that role, she led a multidisciplinary team of over 75 functional experts in strategic planning, biosecurity, biosurveillance, biosafety, and scientific research, as well as project management, of course, operations and acquisition to support BTRP in achieving mission objectives. Dr. Rebecca, we're honored to have you here, and you are welcome.
All right, thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everybody. As Jennifer mentioned, we are part of the Biological Threat Reduction Program, which is part of the Cooperative Threat Reduction Program for the US Department of Defense. And so today I'd like to kind of give a brief overview of the importance of cybersecurity in biosecurity, and hopefully start a good discussion about some of the areas and best practices we need to think about as we're considering this important component of biosecurity. So next slide, please. So in today's age of technological advancement, much of the work that we're doing in global health security, all those activities that address biosecurity, biosafety, and biosurveillance are connected to a cyber component in some way, whether it is through information, infrastructure, equipment, etc. And as part of that biosecurity, we need to think about the potential vulnerabilities and risks and make sure that these capacities and capabilities are protected in the same way that we might think about personnel or physical security. The ties to cyber components, with the ever-increasing use of cyber warfare by different actors and the accessibility of these technologies to sort of lone wolves and non-state actors, makes this risk ever present and increasing. And so it's very important to address cybersecurity as part of our sort of biosecurity thinking. Next slide, please. So I think we're all aware of the goals of biosecurity to prevent unauthorized access, loss, theft, deliberate release, or misuse of hazardous biological agents, and the associated biosurveillance-related information that might be associated with doing our day-to-day activities with global health security. The systems that help us authorize access, track our inventories, ensure personnel reliability, perform our biosurveillance-related work, and produce and store that information would all have some kind of cyber components to be considered when we're thinking about biosecurity. Secondarily, we also want to actively promote responsible conduct of biosurveillance activities and oversight of dual use risk. Again, making sure that the information that we have is reliable and protected and accurate. Next slide, please. So why should we care about cybersecurity, and why do we want to make sure that it is part of the biosecurity discussion? Why do we want to pay attention to these systems and evaluate potential risks? Unfortunately, cyber attacks on life science-related organizations and their facilities are a real and present danger, and they can have critical consequences if they lead to theft or accidental release of biological agents or sensitive information. There are numerous examples of real-world attacks on critical infrastructure, including life science-related organizations, so this isn't an abstract concept. If these types of attacks occur against national health-related assets, the results could severely impact the ability of our nations to protect their country and their region's public health. All right, next slide, please. All right, so there's a couple of examples of cyber attacks that made the headlines over the last, 7, 8 years. For the first example, in 2015, the nation of Ukraine was the target of a cyber attack on the power grid of the western region of the country. The attack left over 200,000 residents without power temporarily, and 2 of the 3 hacked energy distribution centers lost their backup generators. So it had a sort of impact on both the residents and on the infrastructure. Although the outage for residents only lasted up to 6 hours, the computers that were on site at the energy distribution centers that were infected in the attack couldn't be salvaged. So, as we think about that type of thing, how many public health facilities would be able to withstand a similar attack? What would happen if they lost power and couldn't regain the function of critical equipment or security controls, ventilation systems, et cetera? What would happen to that lab equipment and the data if it was somehow lost or inaccessible? So, thinking about these types of critical infrastructure attacks is important to think about our vulnerabilities and risks associated with our public health systems. In the second example, in 2021, multiple biomanufacturing facilities were hit with a malware named tardigrade. And these companies and facilities were attacked through a combination of phishing and infected USB drives. So very typical types of gaining footholds into systems. And the hackers got a foot in the door of these facility networks, and they implanted this malware tailored for biomanufacturing environments. And so this was an unusually capable malware that was able to adapt to the network that it was in. And it was appearing to be specifically targeted to gain access to sensitive information and intellectual property. They were so unprecedented, sophisticated, and pervasive that the United States Department of Health and Human Services Cybersecurity Program released an alert urging biotechnology companies, as well as healthcare and public health sector warnings to make sure that they were aware and they would address the threat. And so again, thinking about that, how many facilities involved in public health are vulnerable to this type of attack? Phishing, USB drives, these are all very, very, common techniques. Data sharing by plugging in USB drives across, different laptops, very common when we're thinking about, studies and sharing data. So what kind of information could we stand to lose, or could somebody gain, and what could be done with it? So, thinking through some of these real world examples should help us think through how we might address biosecurity through some of the cybersecurity components. All right, next slide, please. So these scenarios sound a little daunting, but awareness of the types of risks and the impacts to biosecurity is an important step. And there's much that this group can do to help address some of these risks. So I think, one, we can help raise awareness and understanding of these risks in order to start incorporating risk mitigation and addressing those risks into any part of our biosecurity strengthening approach. Two, we could work towards consensus of best practices to incorporate cybersecurity into biosecurity. This could range from simple information sharing of good cyber hygiene practices, like ensuring security patches are applied to laboratory equipment, or not taking those USB drives and plugging them into multiple devices, or establishing good international standards for cybersecurity in biological facilities. It can really run the gamut of both small, easy solutions to more broad frameworks that we can establish. And three, we can promote these best practices in health sciences facilities to further strengthen the biosecurity of this critical infrastructure. And I'm sure there's lots more that we can all do to help. We definitely are not talking to you as the experts on cybersecurity, but as, an organization that is interested in making sure that we are considering all aspects of security when we're considering biosecurity. So we do want this to be a collective approach to a common problem that we all have. So next slide, please. That's my presentation, kind of short and sweet, but I'm really hoping that this elicits more of a discussion, question and answers. I'm looking forward to hearing what the group has to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that quick, short, and sweet overview. I think it's really valuable, in this fascinating new world, for your suggestions, because we do have a working group that's forming. And of course, you're welcome to join the working group. So I'm extending that invitation to you as well. I'm wondering if Aaron is on. I'm so sorry. I had issues joining initially, and I didn't see if he was on. I didn't do a check-in. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Hey, Jennifer, this is Phil Newton. Aaron's on some well-earned leave, so I'm filling in as his deputy for today.
Okay, great. Thank you. Because I didn't give him a chance to speak at the beginning. Thanks.
That's perfectly fine. I'm not as much of a talker as he is, but I'm happy to be here, and this is a really valuable engagement for us as a department, and we're really excited to hear what folks have to say about the cybersecurity presentation. I think it's a valuable piece of biosecurity that doesn't necessarily get as much attention as some of the more traditional parts of the work do. So I'm very excited to hear how people receive the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. So we're open to questions. We do have time for questions. So please feel free, since Rebecca's on with us, to take advantage of this time.
Yeah.
Julia?
Hello.
Yeah, hey Rebecca, it's Julia Scordo from US State Department ISN CTR. I just, not necessarily a question, but I did want to first say thank you for the presentation. I think it's a really important topic that we're definitely tracking as well through our programming. And I just wanted to flag for the group, in case you don't know, we recently supported development of materials in the exam through IFBA for the cyber biosecurity exam. And so now there's a way for individuals to actually receive certification in the topic, which I think is a great step in achieving some of these skills.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Julia. We have another hand up. Aminu.
Okay, thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. I'm calling in from Abuja, Nigeria. So I think just to recommend that the cybersecurity as it affects the biosecurity is very important. And now that many African countries are developing or revising their own national health security action plan, I think it's the right time maybe for this, the action package and the working group to push recommendation that the cybersecurity and the biosecurity should be prioritized and also reflected in the action plan that many African countries are developing. So we look forward to learn more from you and also having recommendations from the working group. Thank you very much, and over.
Thank you.
Yes, that's an excellent recommendation, Aminu. I think there are quite a few representing African countries who are currently on this call as well. So I appreciate that comment. Jules, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Nothing that I wanted to add, but I think just thanking Rebecca for the presentation, and also wondering with our participants here if there's anyone who has specific observations on how cybersecurity as an overall issue is being included now or is considered for inclusion in training in programs in various countries. So any feedback on whether this is a topic that is currently on either in or planned to be included in ongoing training in different settings. So does anyone in the participating group have any examples to share?
Good morning. This is Michelle McLaughlin from the Public Health Agency of Canada Centre for Biosecurity. I just wanted to raise that in Canada, information management, information security is included as part of the requirements under regulated facilities biosecurity plans. So that is kind of incorporated within our regulations in Canada. And the other thing I wanted to flag is we routinely communicate with those that we regulate with respect to threats, including cyber. So we work closely with our partners in Canada dealing with cybersecurity threats and share that information with a regulated party so that they can update their biosecurity risk assessments and mitigation measures appropriately.
Jennifer, I can see hands up, so I'm going to go ahead and call on people if that's
Please
okay. And then turn back
do.
to you, certainly. So I suspected that was a challenge. Mark.
Hi, everybody. Just as an example, we've conducted projects in East Africa on national inventories of dangerous pathogens, and they require repositories, electronic repositories. And part of the training and the software that was provided, of course, included considerations and guidelines and recommendations on cybersecurity, as they as you wouldn't want to have something that's on the net with data and repositories and information on there. So that was part of the training program and training considerations. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Michelle and Mark. And then there's a question in the chat from Diana Nasike from Uganda. In Africa, generally, our technology and laboratory infrastructure is very poor, so cybersecurity is a long-term dream. And the question is, how can we practically implement this in our context? Rebecca, turning first to you, and then given the remarks our speakers just made, I think broadening it to other suggestions.
So one thing that I think we have found as we think about how we're integrating cybersecurity into our biological threat reduction engagements is that it is definitely something that has to be tailored for each engagement and country's requirements, right? And so different countries have different standards, they have different capabilities, et cetera. And so I think that there's a variety of ways to integrate cybersecurity that can be appropriate for the level of technology and infrastructure that you have, but you do want to think about it kind of as you go. So like, it could be very simple things like practicing good cyber hygiene with a facility when you're, working on data or, pulling data off the network or something like that, right? Or if you have laboratory equipment that connects to the internet, are you being kept aware of the patches, the security patches that might be required to make that machine a little bit less vulnerable to random, ransomware or malware attacks? And so I think that it doesn't have to be a huge undertaking if we're thinking about incorporating it as part of the sort of day-to-day considerations. I mean, similar to biosecurity, physical security, like sometimes it's not a very fancy security system, but a fence or a lock on a door, right? It doesn't have to be a very technologically advanced solution all the time.
I would love to just add, thank you so much, Rebecca, for that follow-up. And just to that point, I think having participated in some of the training and awareness building sessions on biosecurity with partners in East Africa, supported with US partners, I think one of the key issues is building understanding of basic cybersecurity, which requires very little infrastructure and an understanding of the discipline around this, right? As scientists, we're used to discipline and protocols. That there is a pathway to enhancing cybersecurity that begins with behaviors and understanding of passwords and being conscientious about who has access to systems that are actually very low cost, but it requires awareness building and it requires training and support to help people understand what practices can be implemented progressively and how to keep orienting new people as they come in to remind them about things like usernames and passwords and access and being conscious of who has access to information systems as well as the hardware and the equipment, as has already been described. Pavan.
Thank you, Julia, and thank you for the excellent presentation. I think one more thing what you just mentioned is I think also understanding the use of pirated softwares in the countries, which I have seen a lot of them. And so I think if the countries can have, the labs can have a inventory of their actual software, what they have, and then, as you mentioned, utilizing the proper patches like on a regular basis, that will help them. And also not to hook up their own laptops with the labs overall internet activity, so that will help them in keeping their secure in the first place. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent point. Thank you so much. Just a note from just a quick comment from the chat from Anthony that there are a few trainings in cybersecurity organized by ministries and agencies in Nigeria, but most of those are not related to health or biological threats and are organized in relationship to data goals, which are often economic. And I think that that's a really good point, that there are resources that can be applied to this if leadership recognizes this as an important and critical factor. So I think raising awareness, this speaks to raising awareness in health and in research that cybersecurity is a critical element, just as it is in agencies, ministries, and organizations that are conducting economic work. So the same principles apply in terms of knowing customers and clients and collaborators, as well as protecting valuable information. So I think these are places that maybe as this group, working groups, might be able to find some solutions to help raise that awareness. Are
And
there
if I
any?
could just,
Yes, please.
if I could just amplify on that, I think one of the things that we very much pay attention to is that we don't really use the term cyber biosecurity. We just say cybersecurity because it is very similar principles regardless of what systems you apply it to, right? So that is something that I think if we can pull in examples from other sectors, ministries, agencies, et cetera, that would be a really good way to help tackle the issue because it's not always a unique solution.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rebecca. That's a really excellent point. This is not highly specialized. It's principles that can be applied in any setting. You just have to have recognition and support to apply them. Any final questions for Rebecca before we move on, speaking of working groups, to our working group sessions? Oh, Mark?
Hi, yeah, I had one more comment. So the resources that are available, and I've seen that in the chat as well, are of course instrumental in making sure that everybody has ways of improving themselves. But what you'd like to have is, of course, resources that are priorities in different countries and mostly harmonized, and a quick check, for example, in the joint external evaluation that has no cybersecurity in it. So even though you're working sometimes with sensitive data, there seems to be no mentioning of cybersecurity, which is, it doesn't have to be, of course, but considering that in evaluating whether your systems, your national health infrastructure works, and there's also biosafety and biosecurity evaluations in there. There doesn't seem to be, at a first glance, any requirements or questions or evaluative processes to see whether your data is secure and safe. I just wanted to flag that here. I mean, if I'm wrong, I'd love to see where I can find that. But at a first glance, I'm actually missing that.
Yes, just to follow up on what Mark said, I did have a quick question for Rebecca and I guess the larger group, but like on like the international side of things, like are there like international bodies that are kind of prioritizing this? Is this like a BWC issue, a WHO issue? I'm just like wondering like how like at the international stage people are talking about cyber security, how they can incorporate it not only into biosecurity but into like other like health security aspects, and then how are they trying to help like nations implement these practices like best for like their various like resource levels, because like obviously countries with more like advanced like biotechnology or just like resource like heavy countries are going to have more capabilities and therefore need more stringent cybersecurity like regulations or like I guess goals maybe than like less resource countries. Like how are they handling it, and then how are recommendations kind of like scalable so that people don't have to try and meet these like crazy high standards when like maybe they don't have the resources to like meet them. Sorry, that was very rambly.
So from the perspective of the biological threat reduction program, one of the things that we're trying to do is integrate cybersecurity in a thoughtful and structured way into our biosecurity capabilities. And so, for example, if we're providing biosecurity training, we want to make sure that we're now integrating cybersecurity into part of that training. There are various international standards that people are working to for cybersecurity, but not every country uses the same standards. Some countries have their own standards. And so we're trying to sort of take into account like what is the country trying to do, so that when we are cooperatively working with those countries to figure out the capabilities and capacities we're strengthening, we appropriately consider biosecurity or cybersecurity as part of those biosecurity capacity. I know that some of the international organizations that we work with, like Food and Agriculture Organization, World Organization for Animal Health, World Health Organization, are all thinking about cybersecurity as part of biosecurity. But I think we're still in the early stages of really capturing this as a sort of structured piece of biosecurity.
I think Carlos.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I am the incoming biorisk officer at CAFA, the Caribbean Public Health Agency. Great presentation, Rebecca. I just wanted to kind of touch on what Gabby was questioning, because CAFA, we work as the regional institute and most of the reference lab for the Caribbean. And because we have so many different economic it's an economic realm with the different islands being present. We have to treat with our regional health security agenda. We have to treat each island individually based on what they can actually work with. So it's kind of yes, we have a generalized regional health security plan, and we have an agreement in terms of that regional plan, but each individual island or each individual state now then have to basically work at their own pace to implement that biosecurity side of things, which in the regional health security agenda and that plan did include cybersecurity as a result of the direct attacks that could happen to lab information systems, any kind of somewhat repository of information where clinical information is present. So you kind of have to work with the individual states at their own pace and at their own economics rate, basically, because some islands may not be able to afford a new bleeding edge technology or in security just yet. So I would say I agree with Julia in terms of it's really Julie, not Julia, sorry. With it being more of a behavioral thing. So you have to start at that point. So plans are in place to start with the small island states with biosecurity training and biosafety training, so they have a better understanding before integrating our information systems team with the cybersecurity side of things.
Thank you so much for providing that perspective on the specific situation, Carlos, and for helping bring some texture to this conversation about what resources are available and how they can be rolled out. And I'd like to thank everyone who has contributed to the conversation. I think this is incredibly rich, and what we've identified is this is a common and priority need for enhancing biosecurity, and one in which there are resources and training being developed. And perhaps this group can provide, through the action package, a place to share some of the resources that are currently publicly available, increase awareness and sharing using the action package, using our website and using our distribution to share the resources that are available with each other and make them more widely acknowledged. So I look forward to following up with all of the action package leadership to see how we can move this forward for some of the conversations in the chat. I would like to take this opportunity to ask everyone to thank Rebecca for her presentation and for opening the dialogue on this really important and relevant topic. So thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you. I'm happy that we got this discussion going.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and appreciate the support from the co-chair, the U.S. government and the Department of Defense for taking the lead on encouraging conversation in this area, and to Rebecca for the presentation. So thank you. And now I'm going to turn it back to Jennifer and to Gabby to initiate the discussion in working groups.
So Gabby, are we going to be able to just join when it comes on the screen?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Up to have let participants choose their own room. So let me try and get that set up right now.
That would be great. And unfortunately, because we're holding this at the same time, obviously you can only choose one group. If you leave, no guarantee that you'll be able to get back in. So, but you are you can choose multiple groups. I know a lot of people are really fascinated by the emerging technologies because this is the new reality for us. So I think what we might need to do is when the groups decide on the different times that they will meet is just share it with everybody so that if you're in multiple groups, you can still catch up and join those meetings. All right, Gabby.
Okay, so.
Oh, it says join the breakout room. I'll just stay on with you, Gabby.
Yeah, I think you should be able to click into various breakout rooms. Has everyone gotten the prompt?
Yeah,
Not yet.
Hi, Gabby. If you're using a phone and you touch your screen, you should see on your left button, join breakout room. So you should be able to do it. And on the laptop, it should appear on the bottom bar if you scroll all the way. Then from there, you can choose.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I guess
thanks, Peter. It's under in the
The
bottom
three
bar.
dots.
Yeah, it's under the three dots.
The more. If you're on a laptop, go to the more on the bottom right, and it's the last option, breakout rooms.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then if people are still having issues trying to join rooms, I can also manually assign you a room if you want.
It's really cool the way they have it though, because it's showing the names as people join, Gabby, on the laptop. So if you go to the three dots, and then you click on it and you scroll down.
Yeah,
yes, it's really cool.
So no one else can see that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It looks like almost everyone's gone.
Well, Jennifer, if you want to go ahead.
I'm going to go. Yeah, I'm going to go so I don't hold them up.
People.
Thanks, Gabby.
So yes, if anyone is left in this main room, if you're having trouble entering a room, you can just let me know which room you would like to go into. I can physically assign it to you as well.
Peter was in mid-sentence, Gabby.
I was also mid-sentence.
Sorry, sorry, Mark.
No, no worries, no worries.
Yeah, we really crave the time to be able to meet, and it's difficult to do outside of our regular meetings. So
That's totally fine. I was actually talking about some sort of a written exercise, and I think I can help out with that. Let me put this in the chat.
go ahead, Mark.
Gabby, if I can add
okay.
really quickly, Sam, if you're okay with this, maybe just for our working group, we can take the action to send out an email and maybe see if we can set up a time for some of the group, if not all, depending on availability, to meet. And then, Mark, if you want to follow up in that email chain as well, just to keep this conversation going.
Yeah, that's fine as well. If I'm in the email chain, I'll I think I've expressed what I wanted to say. And if there's an email chain follow-up, I'll try to comply with that. Thanks.
So,
and Jennifer,
yes,
I was just
Peter.
saying that
Go ahead.
I think for me, South really doesn't matter where the participants are from, but the largest part of the work should be kind of working together within the region, or within like collaborations between Southeast Asia, Latin America, and Africa, irrespective of where the technical persons come from. It could be agnostic for the technical person as long as they are contributing to the conversation.
Great, thank you, Peter. I am wondering whether everyone, so our group, South, we did not have, the person who said that they might lead was not on the group. So I was just wondering if the other groups have leadership, because I noticed on the chart, the civil military group did not have a specific leader, someone that had volunteered. But how did it go? Were you all able to at least pick leaderships for the group?
Hey, this is Phil. I think I informally assumed leadership, but we didn't specifically talk about that. Mostly because I assumed since Aaron was in there, he was probably talking. We did talk some about some of the existing resources that are out there and some of the work that's happening, both under the Global Partnership for Countering Weapons of Mass Destruction and making use of some of the tools that the WHO is developing as part of their guidance on civil-military cooperation in the health space. So it was a good starter conversation. We'll have to continue it and continue to see if someone might be interested in taking up the mantle of leading. But we can follow up on that, Jennifer.
Excellent, thank you. So we have 1 minute to go, and I just really want to thank everybody for attending this meeting. I think it's really exciting to have the working groups and to have the freedom to choose the direction of the groups also. And I'm really hopeful that some really great products will come out of all of this that can help advise, on regional and country levels. So if you have any comments or questions or anything really, please feel free to reach out to us. We're here, we're available, and just want to wish you all, a safe, I hear there's a new variant out, so please all stay safe. Winter's coming, autumn, and we're going to be indoors more. So if we need to mask up, please do. All right, everybody. Take care. Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank
Jennifer.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.